Welcome to 27 Topics. Today we have with us a very special guest, and I'm sure that most of the viewers here know the man. It's Kurt Gutgsell. He's the sportsman for Southwestern Indiana, does all the Southridge sports and other high school sports throughout the county and area schools.
Right.
He knows the parents of the kids and then some. And then, we're going to talk a little bit about the last year's highlights and top stories, and we'll talk a little bit about class basketball and the realignment and a few other things. But welcome, Kurt. And why not start off with the accomplishments of high school sports?
All right. Thanks, Paul, for having me on your show today. And as always is the case when we close down a year and start another year in sports locally, several things highlighted the 2006 portion of our sports calendar last year, and running down some of the great events from this past year. Back in June, the Jasper High School baseball team won their fifth state baseball title. They won 3 straight in the mid-90s, then picked up a championship in 2000, and then this past summer at Victory Field, they beat Norwell to win the state baseball championship at Victory Field. If you follow Jasper baseball throughout the year, they had trouble scoring runs, and they weren't very good offensively, but they pitched well. They played great defense, and that really carried them throughout the year. In fact, they were no-hit by Pike Central in the baseball sectional, but still found a way to win that ball game, then win 2 games in the regional, and also pick up a semi-state crown as well. But they got in the ball game with Norwell, and all the experts thought it was going to be a low-scoring baseball game between the Knights and the Wildcats at Victory Field. You had a big park, 2 really good pitchers, and it turned into a slugfest, and Coach Terry Gobert likes to call it a slow-pitch softball game because everybody was hitting the baseball, and the Wildcats were down 12-7 in the 6th inning, but came back to beat Norwell with a couple of runs in the bottom half of the 7th inning, and it was just pandemonium once again at Victory Field. And the Wildcats were able to win that ball game and send their fans happy with that 5th state baseball title, and the Jasper baseball program known around the state for all their accomplishments on and off the field. Another aspect of the state championship baseball run by the Wildcats was the honoring of their coach, Terry Gobert. He will go into the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame coming up here in the middle of January. He's guided the Wildcats to all 5 of those state baseball championships. He took over a great program from the likes of Don Noblett and Ray Howard, and even made the program better. So he'll join Coach Noblett, Alvin C. Rookser, and Ray Howard as people from Jasper to be elected into the Hall of Fame. And it's nice for this community to have that honor with those guys, and perhaps nobody else in the state, as far as communities are concerned, have as many people in the Baseball Hall of Fame located out at the Rookser Student Center than the community of Jasper. So Jasper baseball quite successful in this past year. Also looking at other area sports, Forest Park once again won the 2A state basketball championship with another victory over Fort Wayne Harding at Conseco Fieldhouse, and another amazing run by Tom Beach and the Forest Park Rangers. It was quite a sectional at Huntingburg Memorial Gym in Class 2A, and perhaps one of the top 2A sectionals in the state. Rangers got through that, went on to win the regional also at Huntingburg Memorial Gym before beating Heritage Christian in the one-game 2A Southern Semi-State at Barney Scott Gym in Seymour. On their way to the win over Harding. Brandon Hof of Forest Park led the Rangers. He was named to the Indiana All-Star team as well that took on Kentucky in June as well. So a feather in the cap of Brandon Hof. He's now at the University of Southern Indiana, joining teammate Jeff Van Winkle down there. So congratulations once again to Tom Beach, who's done just an outstanding job with the Forest Park basketball program in their back-to-back state championships in Class 2A. Also on the sports scene this past year, the St. Louis Cardinals winning the World Series. They're a local favorite as far as baseball is concerned with the fans, and one of our own, Scott Rowland, was in the mix for the Cardinals, did an outstanding job at third base, battled battled injuries in the 2005 season, but came back and played real solid for the Cardinals. He picked up another Gold Glove defensively and helped the Cardinals win another World Series baseball championship, and all the area fans really enjoyed the Cardinal baseball run at the end of the season, as well as they beat the Detroit Tigers after beating the Mets in the National League Championship Series. Also, just a month ago, or a little over a month ago, Southridge went on a great football tournament run. The expectations were high in the southwest part of the county. The Raiders returned 29 seniors, and that's almost unheard of in a Class 2A situation, being one of the smallest schools in the state, or not one of the smallest schools, but one of the smallest classes along with Class A, but they put 29 seniors on the field. People thought they'd be a very good football team, and they most certainly were. They were able to win the 3-game sectional, go on to the regional. They hosted Brownstown and blitzed the Braves out at Raider Field, then went up north to North Putnam to win the semi-state on the North Putnam's home field, and they were able to get it done. But unfortunately, at the state finals, they ran into a very good and athletic Fort Wayne Harding football team that were just too much for the Raiders on that, but it doesn't diminish any of the accomplishments that the Raiders had this past football season in getting to the RCA Dome. And Jacob Colley, their senior quarterback, backup quarterback, was named the Mental Attitude Award, a winner that goes along with academics and athletic success. So it was a big day for the Raiders despite not picking up that championship. Also, a lot going on in the amateur ranks, not just high school related. Derek Bowling, a Southridge grad, a former IUPUI golfer, won his 6th Du Bois County Amateur Golf title over the summer. And Derek, one of the better golfers in all of Indiana and perhaps the Midwest on the amateur level, ripped off another Du Bois County Amateur Golf title, his 6th, as I mentioned. He ties Bill Dittmer Jr. as the only men to win 6 Du Bois County Amateur Golf titles. So once again, congratulations to Derek on that feat, and I'm sure he'll be ready for number 7 this July as well. Also, a big topic, and we'll touch on this later, was the class realignment for some area high schools, and we'll break that down further. That was big news that happened in late December, and we'll get to that in just a second. Also, going back to football, the Forest Park Rangers started their football program. It was in the works for the last few years. They had a very successful junior football league put together in the Southeast District, but this year they played their first organized football, if you will. They started on the JV level, and they were quite successful. They did things right when they started. A bunch of people within the Southeast community did a nice job of laying the groundwork from the bottom up. They took care of all the facility needs, all the financial needs for several years. They hired a very solid coach in Terry Wagner, who was retired from football coaching. He is a teacher at Perry Central, but he led the Commodores to the state football finals and has been a stalwart head coach in Southern Indiana football for several years. He decided to get back in, and Forest Park named him their head football coach, and he oversaw the Ranger JV football program this year, and they were quite successful. They beat several established JV football teams throughout the season. They'll play JV football again next year before starting varsity football in 2008, and the people in the Forest Park and Southeast District can't wait for that. Also, several other teams had great success. The Northeast Du Bois volleyball team went to the Class A state finals this past year, their second straight trip, and they've just done a nice job in the last few years under Coach Angie Pfister, who decided to step down at the end of the season. She announced it before the tournament run, but she did a great job of putting the the Northeast Du Bois volleyball program together, and she turns over that program in good hands to the next coach. Also, Becky Nixon's Jasper volleyball team went to the state finals this past October as well, and Becky Nixon does an outstanding job with her program as well. She's an outstanding coach and an outstanding leader of young ladies, and the Jasper volleyball team getting a lot better as well, and they're back on the map too. So A lot going on in the last year. I hate to ramble, but we could probably go on all day long about sports in DuBois County. People love it. They take it seriously. It makes my job a lot better and a lot more fun because it is important to people and they really get involved. And it's a really nice place to cover sports and talk about sports and broadcast sports.
Kurt, that you just hit the cream of the sports in DuBois County, and there's probably a lot more that we did not touch on or even have time to touch on, even in the lower grades.
Right. People participate in sports all over the place. I mean, in fact, the Jasper Park and Rec Department just put together that great complex out there on the south end of town by the old drive-in, and that allows more and more kids in the smaller ages to get involved in sports and being part of a positive experience. So yeah, you're right. Sports goes from the littlest of kids to the oldest of men and women.
Tell you, Kurt, we'll take a break here and we'll be back and talk a little bit about class sports.
If you or someone you know has a talent to showcase or an event to promote on 27 Topics, please contact this station.
Kurt, you certainly gave us some of the top stories of the year, and it just continues. But, just recently, and this is the year for football and basketball both being realigned. How did that affect us?
Well, every 2 years they realign the football classifications. There are 5 classes in football. Then in boys and girls basketball, softball, and baseball, there are 4 classes, and they just realign that. That goes into 4 and 5 year cycles. But around here, Southridge will probably be the biggest people affected. They will move from a Class 2A school in the basketball, softball, baseball realm to a Class 3A school starting next year. So they will be in the same classification as Jasper, and you're classified as the enrollment of your school. And sometimes you have these hits in people coming into high school, and there's a lot of factors on that. You have industry that comes into your community, and people bring in jobs, and obviously your student enrollment goes up, and it has the reverse effect. If you go down in class, maybe you've lost some industry, or it was just a boon in kids in that time. But Southridge, again, they're the biggest story there. They're going from 3A. From 2A to 3A in their latest classification. It creates all kinds of questions because Southridge, Forest Park, Tell City, Perry Central, South Spencer, and the like all played in one tournament at Huntingburg Memorial Gym or South Spencer in baseball and the other locations in the other sports. But now Southridge will have to find a new sectional site if they don't have a site at Huntingburg or South Spencer or whatever, and that's what people, I don't think the shock is with them going from 2A to 3A. I think people anticipated that, and they knew this might happen down the line, but now people don't know what's going to happen to their tournament or where they will go, and that is the biggest thing that's out there. I mean, modern day Evansville school, a Catholic school or a parochial school, if you will, they will move from 3A down to 2A. So basically, they and Southridge are the two teams or two schools that are affected, and the simple thing to do there is just switch Southridge and Modern Day, where Modern Day comes into the 2A sectional with Forest Park and those schools I mentioned, and Southridge joins the grouping down that way with Heritage Hills, Boonville, Mount Vernon, Bosse Memorial, and teams like that. But they could also really throw a monkey into the wrench and say, Southridge, Jasper, Crawford County, Pike Central, you may form your own 3A tournament, and you may play at Huntingburg Memorial Gym. Could you imagine the excitement in this area if you put the Jasper fans and the Southridge fans in the schools back in the same sectional? I mean, that would revive maybe what is lost in the last few years to get those groupings together. I mean, the Southridge basketball sectional didn't take a hit like some of the other ones around the state because you still filled it. You had Southridge fans. You had Forest Park's gigantic fan base. So it wasn't that bad, and there was a lot of good atmosphere. But I'm telling you, if you put Jasper and Southridge back in the same sectional, it will be amazing. I know that would just be great for us in the broadcast business and just great for the fans too. So you probably get a kick out of that.
You know, it's really interesting when you get down to the schools in the breakdown of the classes. There's not that much difference between Southridge and Modern Day in the number of students.
No, it's not. And the thing about it is Southridge, they go from being a large 2A school to a small 3A school. And I could talk about why they went to class sports to begin with. We'd fill a 3-hour show, but you know, in this they made it so it would be a lot fair for schools down through the classes. But in this situation, Southridge isn't really a 3A school. They're classified as a 3A school, but there's a large difference between where Southridge sits in 3A to some of the larger 3A schools like the Vincennes Lincolns or the Sullivans. So it's really not fair to a school like Southridge, but that's how it breaks down. And it's just going to be very interesting to see how they group these sectionals and how they group these sites. I mean, local fans would hate to have a gym like Huntingburg Memorial Gym, and we may talk about the way they're renovating that later too. But how would you like to be that situation the first week of March where you're driving right past that gym and it's going to sit empty to go to another venue 50 miles down the road after all the great sectional games and all the fans that you put in that gym down through the years? But I mean, they can do a lot of different things. They can make it sectional at Southridge with Jasper, with Southridge, or they could send the Raiders and the other schools a different direction. That's going to be the big, interesting thing.
Hopefully the gym would not sit empty during tournaments.
There's a possibility if they would send Southridge somewhere that maybe another 2A school will say, hey, can we rent your gym? We need 6,000 seats to put the Tell City fans, the Forest Park fans, the Paoli fans or whatnot in a venue. So I'm sure schools will work together there too to see if they want to do that.
In last year's sectional at Huntingburg, that was one of the largest crowds since class, wasn't it? I mean,
right, and they do a pretty good job with that sectional. Again, you have some pretty rabid fan bases when you're talking about Forest Park, Southridge, Tell City, South Spencer, where people still care about what goes on. And the same thing is at Washington, where Jasper plays their sectional. They've got Vincennes over there, and they've got Washington, and it's still an atmosphere. But if you talk to anybody from Jasper down through the years since they've went to class and they've went to Washington, sure, they go to the tournament. They've had some success over there, but it's just not the sectional. They don't think of it as the sectional, but I guarantee you, since Southridge is in 3A and now Jasper's going to be in 3A, if they put a sectional at Huntingburg Memorial Gym, I mean, there will be people from the youngsters to the old-timers that remember going over to Southridge, and it will be quite a spectacle. So again, it's just a matter of where they put these sectionals in these different classes. And in football, Southridge is going to still remain a 2A school, and they will get Mater Dei in their sectional in football. Mater Dei moved sectionals in football as well, so Mater Dei always a good team in 3A, and there'll be another good team in 2A too. So the teams in that sectional in football 2A 32 will have Mater Dei to contend with.
Now, the decision on just who plays where, when will that be? I mean, will that be announced before the girls' tournament starts? Or
Well, I mean, this all takes effect next year, so it wouldn't matter about
2008, so it won't be.
Well, 2007, the fall of 2007.
Yes,
so the
2000,
girls
yes.
and the boys' tournaments will be where they normally are. They're going to do that in late spring, and what they do there is very interesting. They will set the sectional groupings, and then you get together as a sectional to decide where your venue is going to be. Used to in the one class, you know, the state says, Southridge, you're hosting a sectional, Washington. But what they do now in this age of fairness and get everybody involved, the sectional teams, the 6 sectional teams, decide on the venue. And what they do is they make it a consensus. They say, the people in the Jasper baseball sectional, for example, they will go, where do you want this sectional? And this, you know, all 6 of the schools will say it needs to be Jasper because they have a nice field, they have a good place for fans, we can make the most money there, people like playing there, and then all 6 agree. But if there is one dissent in there, then they say a 5-1 vote, somebody wants to have it, say, at Princeton. They send it to the state, and then the state decides. And that usually doesn't happen, but it sometimes happens, and they take it to the best place, and obviously they would probably decide on Jasper, or they would decide on Southridge's gym because of all their success. So it'll be interesting to get that grouping. Say Southridge in Class 3A gets shifted to that Boonville sectional. Southridge may say, we've had a sectional for 100 years or whatever it was. We want to have this sectional. And we'll see who dissents. I mean, Boonville might not want to host it. They might want somebody else to host it. But Mount Vernon may not want to drive from Mount Vernon to Southridge. They might like it at Boonville. So that'll be interesting to see what they do there. But that's going to come down in the spring, and that'll be very interesting. And I think a lot of these schools are, you know, putting the bug in already. You know, hey, we're Southridge, we're moving from 2A to 3A, but we somehow might want to host a section, or we do want to host a sectional.
Well, that's another one of these things where you really can't sit back and watch it happen.
No, it's a business or anything, and whatever we do or whatever you do, you've got to be proactive instead of reactive. And people will never just come to you and volunteer that you host this or whatever, or do this. You need to, you know, put the bug in their ear.
Kurt, you know, let's move on and talk maybe about, you know, some of the players from high school here that have advanced. Some current ones are like Matt Mock,
right?
And Jay Cutler, who have moved on and certainly are making a name for themselves.
Well, of course, Scott Rowland, we talked about him earlier.
Yeah, we had him earlier.
He gets a lot of run, and deservedly so. You know, people do not understand how hard it is to be a Major League Baseball player. I mean, it's one in thousands that get to wear a Major League uniform. And I think guys like Matt Mock and perhaps maybe not Jay Cutler, we'll talk about that in a second, but a guy like Matt Mock, he led LSU to a national football title. I mean, there are only so many guys in the history of college football that led their team to a national football title. And after his career at LSU, he went on to the Denver Broncos, where he was on their practice squad. Last year, he moved over to the Tennessee Titans to be on their team, their practice squad at first. He also made the active roster and started a game last year against Jacksonville. This year, he remains on that active roster. And again, I don't think people understand at what level a guy like Matt Mock is. There are 32 National Football League teams. There are 2 to 3 quarterbacks on each team, and that's it. There's 90-some NFL quarterbacks that they're the best in the world at what they do. I mean, there are millions of bankers, there are millions of teachers, but there are only 90. Those quarterbacks are at the top of their field, and it's just a great feat for Matt, and he's just a super guy. And He's doing a nice job with the Titans. They like to have him around, and he's a good person, good citizen, and does a lot in the Nashville community. And to go along with Matt, Jay Cutler out of Heritage Hills, played college football at Vanderbilt, set all kinds of records in the Southeastern Conference, and he was drafted in the first round by the Denver Broncos after half the year, sitting behind Jake Plummer. They just couldn't wait to put him into the fray, and he did an outstanding job at quarterback for Mike Shanahan and the Broncos. Cutler started the season off once he got into the starting role by throwing multiple touchdown passes in 4 straight games. He's the only player in the National Football League's history to throw multiple touchdown passes in his first 4 games. So Jay Cutler, another one of those guys that have just been outstanding at the college and professional level. And what's neat about this, Paul, I mean, you look back and we came on the air here on WJTS in '93, and we've got every one of Matt Mock's football games on tape. We've got Jay Cutler's games on tape, and it was neat when they got drafted or whatever. We could run 15 minutes of Matt Mock or Jay Cutler highlights or any one of those guys. And it's just amazing to see those guys as high school players and now see them all grown up and big and strong and playing in the National Football League. And just kind of wanted to toot our own horn a little bit because, you know, and it's neat. And and somebody just told me the other day that they enjoyed having all the games on WJTS, and they played over like 400 games in the baseball, basketball, football, and they have had every one of those games on tape. So that just goes back to the way people care about the sports in Du Bois County and our area. But yeah, Matt Mock, Jay Cutler, Scott Rowland, guys like that make it fun to have those guys around.
Well, you know, and how often is it when 2 people come from the same small school, like Ken Dilger and Jay Cutler,
right?
From the same school.
Well, and they had Bruce King and Chris Ziegler before that, back in the early '80s, that both played professional football. Bob Clayton has had great success in turning out not only great teams but NFL talent, and it's been a big year as well. In the National Football League, the Indianapolis Colts are knocking at the door of another title run. Whether they get there or not, that remains to be seen. But big news in Indianapolis, they're getting close to getting that stadium done. And that was a big thing. I mean, they had to put that in front of the people, in front of some of the taxpayers, and they had somebody come up big in the business community. It's Lucas Oil out of California, and they have Indiana-based stuff as well. But you've seen the new stadium. It's going to be nice, a retractable dome situation. And that was important for the Colts to stay here because it's not guaranteed that, you know, the football team, like any business, if it's not, you know, good for their business, they're not going to stay and continue to be a part of that community. But people came through, Mr. Irsay and all the people in Indianapolis, along with the government officials, said this is important, we need to stay here, and it's going to be a nice stadium.
Now, the one thing I think is neat about the pro sports with the Colts and the Pacers is the fact that it puts Indiana on the map. You couldn't buy that advertising that the state is getting for having these pro teams.
Well, right, and you have all kinds of marketing people from within Du Bois County or the city and the chambers and whatnot in here all the time, and they'll be the first to agree with your statement. I mean, anytime you're on national TV and it says Indiana Pacers or Indianapolis Colts, or they pop up, you know, Scott Rowland's hometown on the screen is Jasper, Indiana. Again, you can't buy that publicity, and it's a great boon for the state. And Indianapolis is a city that needs to have pro sports and college sports, and you know, we have great college institutions. A lot happened in sports in the college ranks. Indiana got a new basketball coach in Kelvin Sampson, and he's leading the Hoosiers right now. Purdue went to another bowl game, Notre Dame as well under Charlie Weiss. So again, Indiana is a lot of fun. I mean, people talk about the other states, and all states have their teams and have their coaches and have their fans, but Indiana's a nice place for sports.
Kurt, I hate to tell you that our time, you know, is expired. We need to cut this off, but maybe we continue it at another time.
We'd love to do it, Paul.
Enjoy having you as our guest.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed being here.